Welcome back to the Deep Dive, the show really designed to give you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. Today, we're plunging into, well, it's like a treasure trove of wisdom, really. A remarkable collection of quotes, insights, all drawn from this compilation known simply as June 30th. Think of it as like a meticulously curated calendar, full of these profound reflections. It's kind of a daily dose where ancient wisdom meets modern thought, and it all seems to converge on one pretty powerful, maybe even slightly counterintuitive idea. Our central theme for this deep dive is the heroic journey within, lessons in patience, growth, and self-mastery. So our mission today is really to unpack how these reflections coming from philosophers, poets, even athletic coaches, how they all seem to point to the singular truth, which is that the greatest battles, the most significant transformations, they aren't really fought out there in the world, not under the glare of public recognition. They happen quietly, persistently, and let's be honest, often pretty messily within ourselves. We're talking about that deep internal work, the stuff that truly defines us, shapes our character, and ultimately, well, it allows us to engage more effectively with the world around us.
Exactly. And that's precisely what makes this June 30th collection so potent, I think. It's really far from just being, a series of abstract ideas or lofty quotes just to sort of ponder. It feels more like a manual, if you will. It illuminates the truly interconnected nature of personal growth, of genuine self-reliance, and, crucially, it highlights the willingness we need to have to embrace our own very human, often quite messy imperfection. These aren't just concepts for, intellectual coffee shop talk. They feel like practical frameworks for genuine transformation, designed to help you not just understand self-mastery, but to actively engage in it, to bring about real, tangible change in your own life. It sort of asks us to look at the process of becoming more fully ourselves, not as this straight line upwards, but more like a dynamic, often paradoxical internal quest.
Okay, right. Let's unpack that straight away, because this first set of insights, it immediately challenges a really pervasive misconception we have. When we hear hero's journey, what immediately springs to mind, for most people? Right away, our minds conjure up these images of someone, well, flawless, invincible maybe, a knight in shining armor, always knowing the way forward, always brimming with confidence. But Stephen Pressfield's work, which is a key part of our sources today, it just completely shatters that romanticized and frankly often intimidating notion. And honestly, I find that incredibly liberating. It's almost a relief.
It really is. Takes the pressure off, doesn't it?
Totally. Pressfield advises us to take the word hero with a substantial grain of salt when we're talking about this archetypal journey, whether it's in the epic tales we read or, importantly, in our own actual everyday lives. And why? Because, he says, most of the time, the so-called hero is, in his, well, blunt but honest words, lost, disoriented, stumbling, and bumbling.
Mm-hmm. Not quite the Instagram version of heroism.
Not at all. It's a far cry from that perfectly poised figure we might imagine gracing the cover of some triumphant biography. It's less Hollywood blockbuster finale and more like a behind-the-scenes documentary of repeated missteps and uh-oh moments.
Yeah, the messy middle bits.
Exactly. And he gives us so many classic examples to back this up. Just think about it. Jason and his Argonauts, they weren't some perfectly synchronized, heroic unit. Pressfield vividly puts it, they were all screwed up.
Yeah.
And the legendary Theseus, Hercules, Perseus, Odysseus, these titans of myth, they weren't immune to mistakes or moments of profound confusion and doubt either.
Right. They had their bad days. Big time.
Big time. Even figures like Arjuna from the Mahabharata, grappling with those huge existential dilemmas right there on the battlefield, or St. George facing his dragon, or even the Mesoamerican deity Quetzalcoatl with his own really complex narrative. All of them, in their respective stories, were depicted as deeply screwed up, or at the very least, profoundly challenged during significant parts of their journeys.
It was not an anomaly. It's the pattern.
It's the pattern. This isn't just some casual observation. It's presented as a fundamental, often unglamorous characteristic of heroism itself. It sort of normalizes the struggle, the doubt, the internal conflict, and yeah, the very human missteps that are just an inevitable, maybe even essential part of any significant quest. It basically tells us that your moments of feeling lost aren't failures, they're features of the journey.
Yeah, features, not bugs. And what's fascinating here is how perfectly this perspective from Pressfield aligns with David Mamet's really incisive interpretation of Joseph Campbell's powerful concept,
Yeah.
the belly of the beast.
Yes, the belly of the beast.
Right. Mamet, who's a masterful storyteller himself, of course, writes about this period in Campbell's analysis of world myth. He describes it as a time that is not the beginning and not the end. It's that crucial middle passage,
Yeah.
that uncomfortable, murky in-between stage, where the protagonist, or maybe it's you if you're an artist working on a challenging piece, or just a person navigating a really significant life transition, experiences profound self-doubt. It's that moment where they might even wish the whole journey had never begun.
Yeah.
That feeling of, what have I gotten myself into?
Oh, I think everyone can relate to that feeling at some point. Maybe more like the swamp of self-doubt.
Exactly. The swamp of self-doubt. And this belly of the beast, this swamp, it isn't an aberration. It's not a sign that you've taken a wrong turn or you're off track.
Yeah.
On the contrary, it's presented as an essential and integral component of growth and transformation.
That's such a key reframing.
It really is. Think about it. If the hero was always confident, always knew the exact path, if every single step was certain, well, what would be the point of the journey? What real internal growth could possibly occur?
Right. There'd be no friction, no challenge.
Precisely. The uncertainty, the regret, the feeling of being utterly lost, these are the crucible moments. These are what forge resilience, clarify purpose, and strip away anything that's inauthentic. It normalizes the struggle for us, the listeners, the people actually living out our own unique journeys. It shows that even the most legendary figures went through this exact same phase.
That's incredibly helpful to remember.
Yeah, this period of intense internal conflict and doubt. This is where the true, often unseen internal shifts start to happen. It's where old identities get shed, limiting beliefs are challenged head-on, and new capabilities are quietly, sometimes painfully, formed. It really is a messy middle where the real alchemy takes place.
Oh, okay, boiling that down. What does this all mean for us, navigating our own lives? It sounds like a powerful and, frankly, profoundly reassuring reminder. Feeling lost, feeling disoriented, maybe even wishing you hadn't started something big. That isn't a sign of failure. It's not proof that you're simply not cut out for it.
Not at all.
In fact, it's often a profound indication that you're right where you need to be on your own heroic journey. It means you're smack dab in that transformative middle passage, the belly of the beast, and that's exactly where the real character-defining work actually happens.
The part they don't put in the movie trailer.
Right, it's the unglamorous bit that future generations might just gloss over when they tell your legend. And this mythological perspective, this idea of internal struggle and transformation, it connects so beautifully with something Leo Tolstoy observed, which is also featured in our June 30th collection. He said, "Real living takes place not in the domain of outward change, but in the inner domain, where changes can hardly be observed in our spiritual life."
Wow. That lands powerfully.
Doesn't it? It's such an elegant, almost seamless bridge between those grand external adventures of mythic heroes, their dragon fights and perilous ocean crossings, and the quiet, often completely unseen battles we fight every single day within ourselves.
Precisely. Those external adventures we read about in myths, the quests, the monsters, the trials, they really serve as powerful, often dramatic metaphors for the visible, often arduous work of internal transformation. It's that quiet, usually unglamorous process of becoming who we are truly meant to be. And this suggests that the real heroism, the most profound and lasting kind, is often unseen. It's not always about the outward display of strength or the loudest roar or the most public victory.
Right. It's quieter than that.
Much quieter. It's about the inner fortitude, the willingness to actually engage with one's own limitations and fears, to confront one's own shadows. It's the daily, persistent effort to refine one's character, to understand oneself more deeply, and crucially, to align one's actions with one's true values, even when absolutely no one else is watching.
That, especially when no one is watching, part feels key.
It is. This inner heroism isn't applauded in public squares or, immortalized in statues, but it builds the unshakable foundation for all meaningful external accomplishments and genuine impact later on. It's the long game of self-development.
Okay, this is where things get really, really compelling, I think. Our sources offer this truly powerful and, somewhat counterintuitive perspective on patience. Because we often think of patience as just passive, right? Like waiting around, twiddling your thumbs, maybe lacking urgency.
Just waiting for something to happen.
Exactly. But the wisdom here completely flips that on its head. It reveals patience not as some kind of weakness, but as an active, transformative force, an almost paradoxical form of power. Just consider Al-Ghazali's incredible wisdom. Desires make slaves out of kings, and patience makes kings out of slaves.
Wow. Okay. Let that sink in.
Right. Think about that for a moment. It's a radical inversion of conventional power dynamics. Usually we associate kings with, ultimate power and control and slaves with a complete lack thereof. But Ghazali, this Persian Sufi philosopher, he suggests that unchecked desires, those constant cravings for instant gratification, for immediate results, they can actually enslave even the most powerful individuals
That's so.
by binding them to their impulses, their cravings, making them reactive, perpetually dependent on external gratification. They might wear a crown, but really, they're prisoners of their own appetites.
Okay, I see. So they're not truly free, even if they look powerful.
Exactly. And conversely, patience, rather than being just this passive state of waiting, it becomes an active form of self-mastery.
Active patience. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's about gaining control over your own impulses, your immediate desires, and the often chaotic, unpredictable circumstances life throws at you. This active mastery grants a profound internal freedom and control that, frankly, no external power or kingdom can ever bestow.
Hmm. So it's inner sovereignty.
Precisely. It's the ability to pause, to observe, to choose a deliberate, measured response rather than just being swept away by emotional tides or external pressures. And this is why it can make kings out of slaves, because it frees you from the tyranny of needing everything now. It allows for strategic, long-term thinking and action.
That makes a lot of sense. This kind of patience isn't a deficiency at all. It's a deep form of self-possession. Like having an unshakable inner core that lets you navigate challenges with grace, effectiveness, and ultimately far greater agency.
Right. It feels like the ultimate antidote to the shiny object syndrome that's so prevalent in our modern world, always chasing the next thing.
Totally.
And then Edmund Burke reinforces this idea perfectly when he states, our patience will achieve more than our force.
Oof. Yeah, that hits hard in today's world.
Doesn't it? It's a profound statement in a culture that often prioritizes brute strength, aggressive tactics, or just immediate forceful action to get things done. And then we have this ancient Arabic proverb that drives the point home even further. In haste there is regret, but in patience and care there is peace and safety.
Simple but deep. Sounds like something my grandma would say.
Exactly. But the depth in that simplicity is just remarkable. These insights, taken together, they fundamentally challenge our modern cultural obsession with speed, with instant gratification, with getting immediate results above absolutely everything else.
We're definitely conditioned that way. Faster equals better.
We are. We're often conditioned to believe that if you're not rushing, you're somehow falling behind. But these sources argue that sustainable, profound transformation, whether it's personal, professional, creative, whatever, it requires a completely different, often much slower, temporal rhythm.
A different rhythm. I like that.
Yeah. Rushing, as the proverb says, often leads to mistakes. It compromises quality, fosters burnout, and can actually undermine long-term success by creating instability or just overlooking critical details.
So true. You cut corners when you rush.
You do. It suggests that true progress isn't measured by how quickly you start, but by how thoughtfully, consistently, and patiently you proceed. It's the tortoise and the hare, but like for your life's biggest goals.
Yeah, exactly. And we connect this back to the bigger picture. The June 30th collection gives us this really concrete, almost instructional illustration of patience in practice. It uses this brilliant athletic metaphor.
Ah, the sleek vessel one.
That's the one. It talks about how to become a better and more resilient athlete, you need to build a sleeker vessel before building a bigger engine. It explicitly warns against that tempting but ultimately counterproductive approach of trying to, quote, put a Ferrari engine in a Volkswagen frame.
Ha! Love that image.
It's perfect, isn't it? And it's an analogy that applies to so much more than just physical training. It's really a blueprint for any complex skill acquisition or personal development goal.
Okay, break that down for us. How does that progression work?
Well, the detailed breakdown is key. It really highlights the principle of progressive overload, but applied much more broadly. First, it emphasizes movement quality. You start by learning to move better, which realigns the frame. So this is about fundamental mechanics ensuring your body, or maybe your mind or your business process, whatever it is efficient and balanced from the start.
Get the basics right first.
Exactly. Then comes consistency. Repeated bouts of effort, always with perfect form, just beneath your current threshold. That's what develop endurance and build a bigger gas tank. This is that steady, unglamorous, often invisible work that builds foundational capacity. It's the deliberate practice that makes you truly capable day in and day out, No shortcuts here.
The reps, the unsexy
The
reps.
unsexy reps,
Right.
exactly. And after you have that consistency, then you gradually start adding load. This builds strength and it cements those good movement patterns, slowly and methodically building horsepower. It's a gradual increase in challenge, carefully layered on top of solid form and endurance.
Slow and methodical. Patience again.
Always patience. And only once you're moving well, with established endurance and strength, only then are your tissues and joints properly prepared to build speed, explosiveness, and athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
You don't try to be explosive from day one. You don't chase, like, viral success on social media before you've actually mastered your craft. You build the underlying structure first, patiently.
Right.
Finally, the text says, by adding explosiveness at the end to an aligned, sturdy, and sleek vessel, you can safely learn to open up the powerful engine you've built. This methodical, patient approach ensures that true power and lasting capability emerge from systematic and foundational development. This isn't just for athletes. It's a blueprint for building any skill, achieving any goal, developing any aspect of yourself.
Can you give another example?
Sure. Imagine trying to write a best-selling novel without first building consistent writing habits, mastering sentence structure, maybe honing your narrative voice. Trying to skip those steps might seem faster, but it often leads to injury in the athletic sense, or burnout, superficial results, or just a fragile, unsustainable outcome in other fields.
Like building a house without proper foundations.
Precisely. It's the difference between, say, a crash diet and building sustainable, lifelong health habits. One is flashy and fast, the other actually works long-term.
That's such a clear analogy. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really sticks with you. It's all about trusting that methodical process and understanding that skipping steps or trying to rush straight to the explosiveness or the powerful engine, it might seem like the faster, more glamorous route.
It always seems that way.
But in reality, it rarely, if ever, leads to true strength, resilience, or lasting mastery. It's about laying down that robust, patient foundation, brick by careful brick, before you even think about building the skyscraper.
Yeah. No one tries to bench press 300 pounds on their first day at the gym, right?
Huh. Well, no one who wants to keep bench pressing anyway.
Good point.
Okay, let's unpack this next idea, because this one presents a really striking paradox. It emerges from Tolstoy's calendar entries again, and it really shifts our perspective on how we approach things like help, community, personal growth. It challenges our very notion of what it even means to make a difference.
Intriguing. What's the paradox?
Well, Tolstoy, in his typical, shall we say, radical fashion, presents two incredibly thought-provoking insights. The first one, instead of saving humanity, every person should save himself.
Wow. Okay. That sounds blunt.
It is blunt, and it's powerfully complemented by this observation. The more people believe that others can improve their lives, the slower any improvement will occur.
Huh. Okay. That runs counter to a lot of modern thinking about collective action.
Totally. At first glance, especially in a world that really emphasizes collective action and societal betterment, this might sound incredibly selfish, maybe even isolationist. But when you dig into it, you start to realize it's actually profoundly wise. Maybe even altruistic, but in a deeper, more sustainable sense.
How so? Unpack that altruism part.
Well, it's not about narcissism, right? It's not about abandoning others to their fates. It's about recognizing that true, lasting improvement, particularly in one's inner state and personal growth, begins with individual responsibility.
Okay.
If we constantly look outward for someone else to save us, to fix our problems, to improve our lives, we inherently disempower ourselves. We become passive recipients rather than active agents in our own lives.
Right. We give our power away.
Exactly. External dependence, even if it's well-intentioned, often hinders genuine, lasting self-improvement because it bypasses the necessary internal work. You just can't delegate your own journey of growth. You can't outsource your self-mastery.
Makes sense. Like if your own house is on fire, you really can't effectively help your neighbor put out theirs until you've got your own situation under control.
That's a great analogy. That's exactly it.
So this raises an important question then, doesn't it? About where true agency and the capacity for transformation actually reside. If we're constantly waiting for external forces or other people, or maybe the government or something outside of us, to initiate our improvement, we're essentially just deferring our own power. This insight, especially relevant today with, endless advice and information available, suggests that real change comes from within. From an individual taking ownership of their own process, their own struggles, and their own growth.
Ownership, that's key.
Yeah, it's about cultivating an internal locus of control rather than perpetually seeking external validation or solutions. It's the difference between being a passenger in your own life and actually taking the wheel.
Right. And this idea gets reinforced further by something J.W. von Goethe observed,
Yeah.
specifically about parenting, but it has much broader implications.
Oh.
Goethe said, "Too many parents make life hard for their children by trying, too zealously, to make it easy for them."
Oh, wow. That's a classic example of good intentions gone wrong, isn't it?
Exactly. It's this deep paradox. The desire to shield others from struggle, to remove all the obstacles from their path, it paradoxically impedes their development. It prevents them from building resilience, from developing crucial problem-solving skills, from cultivating deep self-reliance.
Because they never get the practice.
Right. If every challenge is cleared away for them, if every single discomfort is immediately removed, they never learn how to clear challenges for themselves. They never build that internal muscle needed to face adversity.
It's like that analogy of trying to help a butterfly out of its chrysalis too soon.
Perfect analogy. You think you're being kind, but you're actually crippling it by preventing it from strengthening its own wings through the struggle.
And you can see this reflected in broader societal trends too, can't you? There's often this cultural push for immediate solutions, quick fixes, the removal of any discomfort.
Definitely. We look for the external program, the magic pill, the policy change.
Right. Instead of maybe focusing more on nurturing the intrinsic ability within individuals to face and overcome adversity. True help, then, according to this perspective, comes not from removing obstacles entirely, but maybe from modeling and facilitating the process of overcoming them.
Okay, so equipping, not just rescuing.
Exactly. Empowering others to navigate their own struggles, to develop their own internal compass, rather than simply trying to bypass the whole experience of growth for them. It's a subtle but really crucial distinction between doing for someone and enabling them to do for themselves.
That leads us beautifully to this timeless illustration from the Bible, doesn't it? The story of Mary and Martha. It's in Luke's Gospel. It perfectly illustrates this principle of self-reliance and internal focus we've been circling around.
Remind us of the story.
So Martha in the story was careful and troubled about many things. She was super busy with all the external tasks, preparing food, serving guests, trying to make everything perfect, making sure everyone else was comfortable. All good things.
Like a typical host.
Totally. But Mary, her sister, in contrast, hath chosen that good part which shall not be taken away from her.
Yeah.
She was sitting, listening, focused internally, perhaps.
Okay. And the good part is?
The good part is interpreted as that essential internal work, the cultivation of one's inner life, the focus on what truly matters deep down, the deep spiritual or personal work that, crucially, cannot be delegated. It can't be done for another person.
Ah, okay. Non-transferable.
Exactly. It is uniquely personal and non-transferable, but profoundly impactful. You can help someone with their external burdens, sure, you can offer them a hand with the dishes like Martha was doing, but you can't live their internal life for them. You can't do their work of self-discovery or spiritual growth for them.
Right. That's a journey each individual has to undertake for themselves, because that good part is truly their own. No one else can choose it or live it for you.
It really makes you think about where we direct our own energy, doesn't it? Day to day.
It does. Are we constantly caught up in the many things, the endless external tasks, the striving to fix everyone else's problems, that never-ending to-do list that often just feels like a proxy for real productivity?
Or are we actually making space for and focusing on the one thing needful, that essential internal work?
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's explore this art of presence and action. Because our sources present a really fascinating and, at first glance, seemingly contradictory dance between contemplation and doing.
Okay, the inner and outer balance again.
Yeah. On one hand, you have the mystic poet Rumi advising us, let silence be the art you practice.
Which suggests deep introspection, right?
Yeah.
Quieting the external noise, turning inward to find wisdom.
Very contemplative.
Very. But then, in what might seem like a direct contradiction, you have the legendary basketball coach, John Wooden, renowned for his intense focus on preparation and execution, warning us that failure to act is often the biggest failure of all.
Huh. Okay, so sit in silence or get moving. What gives?
Exactly. So how do these two seemingly opposing ideas resolve themselves? Is it one or the other?
Doesn't sound like it, based on what we discussed. No, it seems it's not about choosing one over the other, but really recognizing their profound synergy. Both profound silence, which leads to deep contemplation and self-awareness, and purposeful action, which is about engaged doing in the world, They fundamentally require deep presence and mindful awareness.
Presence is the link.
That seems to be the key. Silence informs effective action. It provides the clarity, the strategic insight, maybe the emotional equilibrium needed to act wisely and strategically, rather than just reactively lashing out.
Okay.
And action, in turn, grounds that wisdom. It tests it in the real world, provides crucial feedback, and integrates the learning into our actual lived experience.
So they're two sides of the same coin.
Exactly, each feeding the other in this continuous loop of growth and effectiveness. You can't lead a team effectively without taking time for strategic thought, but all the thinking in the world won't actually win the game without decisive action on the court.
Right. That makes sense. What's really fascinating here is that understanding that true mastery involves this dynamic interplay between internal reflection and external engagement.
A dance.
It's a dance. It's not about being either a passive observer, just lost in thought, or some kind of frenetic doer, constantly acting without clear direction. It's about finding that precise balance where one actively informs the other. Think of it like the ebb and flow of a tide.
Oh, nice image.
Yeah, the inward pull of reflection gathers strength and clarity, which then propels the outward surge of intentional action. Without that reflective silence, action can easily become aimless, purely reactive, or just plain ineffective. But without action, silence can become stagnant, maybe detached from reality, or merely theoretical knowledge gathering dust.
It's the difference between designing a beautiful, intricate building on paper and actually constructing one that stands strong against the elements.
Exactly. Both are absolutely essential.
And this dynamic interplay, this need for both reflection and action, it leads directly to another powerful insight from our sources, which is awareness of errors is essential to improvement.
The stumbling hero again.
Right back to that. Growth fundamentally seems impossible without honest self-examination, which means stripping away the ego's protective mechanisms.
Which is hard to do.
So hard. We often want to avoid admitting mistakes, right? To gloss over our failures, to maintain this perfect facade for ourselves and others. But true progress demands that we humbly acknowledge where we went wrong, where we stumbled, where we were, to use Pressfield's term again, screwed up.
And connecting back to the myths.
Yeah, it connects right back to our discussion of those screwed up mythic heroes. Their greatness didn't emerge despite their flaws, but often through their willingness to acknowledge and face them head on.
It's in that honest assessment of missteps that genuine learning occurs, and space is created for real improvement.
So that willingness to, as the source puts it, humiliate yourself, to embrace humility, it's not about shame or weakness at all.
No, it sounds like radical honesty.
It's radical honesty with oneself, a prerequisite for any real development. It's about being brave enough to actually look at the ugly parts, the mistakes, so you can actually fix them and learn from them.
Makes sense. Otherwise, you just keep repeating them.
Exactly. And then the French critic and novelist Paul Bourget delivers this truly sobering observation. It feels like a kind of existential warning. One must live the way one thinks, or end up thinking the way one has lived.
Oof. Read that again.
One must live the way one thinks, or end up thinking the way one has lived.
Wow, that's heavy.
Isn't it? It's this profound warning against the dangerous, often insidious drift between our professed beliefs, what we say we value, what we think is right, and our actual daily behavior. It's a direct challenge to our authenticity and integrity.
So if your actions don't align with your thoughts?
Right. If you keep making choices that contradict what you believe is right or true, you risk this corrosive process where your behavior will eventually dictate your beliefs, not the other way around.
How does that work?
You start to rationalize your actions. You justify them after the fact, rather than elevating your actions to meet your ideals. Your thinking shifts to match your living, even if that living isn't aligned with your deeper values.
It's like the subtle erosion of your own internal compass.
That's a perfect way to put it, the subtle erosion of your own compass. So it's this powerful challenge to really, truly walk your talk and to be ruthlessly honest with yourself if you're not. Are you actually living in alignment with what you truly believe, what you genuinely value, what you aspire to be?
Or are your daily habits, your choices, maybe your unchecked impulses, subtly eroding your conviction and reshaping your worldview in ways you might not even realize until it's too late?
Yeah. It's a call to constant self-awareness and conscious choice, like doing a constant alignment check between your head and your feet. Are they pointing in the same direction?
That constant check feels crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us nicely to the integration of all this, right?
Wow.
Wisdom and practice, the whole picture. And Confucius with his timeless wisdom, provides the perfect synthesis for pretty much everything we've been discussing here. He said, "Knowledge without practice is useless. Practice without knowledge is dangerous."
Simple, powerful, universal.
Absolutely. This principle applies to literally every aspect of personal development we can think of. Physical training, creative endeavors, spiritual growth, even just building meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
If you just accumulate knowledge, reading books, listening to deep dives like this one, taking courses, but you never actually put it into action, well, it's inert. It serves no real purpose beyond intellectual curiosity.
Right. It's like having that meticulously detailed map, but never taking a single step on the actual journey it describes.
Precisely. Conversely, if you just practice blindly, without knowledge, without understanding the underlying principles, the why behind what you're doing, it can be not just inefficient, but actively harmful.
Dangerous, as Confucius said.
Dangerous. It's like trying to build a complex machine without understanding its blueprints or mechanics. You risk breaking components, hurting yourself, or simply creating something that fundamentally doesn't work. True mastery, therefore, requires both learning and doing, theory and application, contemplation and action. They are inextricably linked, each informing and refining the other.
Like reading every book on playing the guitar versus actually picking it up.
Perfect example. You can read every book, watch every tutorial, but until you pick it up and practice, enduring the sore fingers and awkward chords, you won't make music.
And if you just strum aimlessly.
If you just strum aimlessly without learning chords or scales or theory, you'll probably just make noise, maybe frustrate yourself, and likely quit. You need both.
Okay. And in this profound context, Tolstoy comes back in with a kind of guiding question, a sort of organizing principle for all of this accumulated wisdom. He suggests that as soon as a person asks himself the question, how do I live my life in the best way? Then all other questions are answered.
Wow, that's a big one. The ultimate question, maybe.
It feels like it. It's not a casual query you just idly ask yourself over coffee one morning. It's presented as a fundamental, deeply challenging self-inquiry that should permeate and inform all other decisions and choices we make.
It elevates the whole discussion from just tactics and daily tasks to foundational purpose.
Exactly. This single question, when you truly embrace it, when you genuinely wrestle with it, it necessitates both things we've been talking about. It requires the inner work of self-examination, understanding your deepest values, clarifying your true purpose, acknowledging your flaws and imperfections. And it requires the consistent outer practice, the daily actions, the choices, the behaviors that actually align with those inner insights.
So it's the compass and the walking?
It's the compass that guides every step of the journey. It ensures that whatever you pursue, whether it's building a skill, navigating a personal challenge, engaging with the world, is rooted in this deeper inquiry about living your best, most aligned life.
It provides the framework within which all other actions gain meaning and direction. It's like the ultimate filter for your choices. Am I doing this because it helps me live my life in the best way?
What a powerful filter.
Isn't it? And to tie it all together with just elegant simplicity, there's this wonderfully pragmatic metaphor from the collection, water first for thirst.
Ah, yes. Love this one too.
It's so simple but so profound. In the vast, often overwhelming landscape of personal development, where you can find countless techniques, theories, gurus, paths, this suggests a crucial prioritization.
Get the fundamentals right.
Get the fundamentals right. It means addressing the most basic needs and core principles before you even attempt the more advanced or complex techniques. Think about it. If you're truly parched, desperately thirsty, you don't reach for a gourmet meal, right? Or a fancy cocktail or some elaborate multi-course cleanse.
No, you just need water. Now.
You reach for the simplest, most essential thing, water. So in the context of personal development, this means attending to those foundational principles we've been discussing. Things like cultivating patience, developing deep self-awareness, engaging in consistent, deliberate practice, being willing to face your imperfections. Remember the stumbling hero. These are the water of growth. They are the non-negotiables.
Build the foundation first.
Always. Build that strong, clear, patient foundation before you start adding complexity, chasing advanced strategies, or seeking shortcuts that promise the moon. Neglecting these fundamentals will ultimately undermine any sophisticated efforts you try to make later on. It's about building the sturdy base before you even think about constructing the elaborate structure on top.
It's simple, but yeah, profoundly impactful. Okay, bringing this home, what does this all mean for you, the listener? It feels like a powerful callback to simplicity, to getting the basics profoundly right. It's about recognizing that everything else, all the advanced techniques, all the ambitious goals, all the outward achievements you might desire, truly builds on that strong, patient, self-aware foundation. It's a reminder that sometimes the most effective path forward is actually the most humble one, just focusing on the fundamentals day in, day out.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's just quickly recap the journey we've taken. We've gone through the mythology of imperfection, the alchemy of patience, the paradox of self-reliance. What this collection of wisdom seems to profoundly reiterate is that the journey towards self-mastery is, well, it's not linear, and it's definitely not consistently comfortable.
Far from it.
Like those ancient mythic heroes, Jaceus, Hercules, Odysseus, we have to wholeheartedly expect to be lost, disoriented, stumbling, and bumbling at various and often significant points along our own paths. And that confusion, that feeling of not quite knowing what you're doing, maybe even wishing you hadn't started, it is not evidence of failure.
Crucial point. Far from it. It is, in fact, presented as an integral and utterly essential part of the process itself. It's a sign that you are truly engaged in the transformative work. Maybe it's the universe's way of telling you, okay, yeah, you're actually doing it right now.
Yeah, welcome to the club. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, that athletic metaphor we discussed, the sleek vessel, it provides perhaps the most practical and actionable framework for applying all these profound insights to your daily life.
Right.
The core message is simple, yet revolutionary, I think. Build the sleek vessel before you attempt to install and unleash the powerful engine.
Okay, and in human terms?
In human terms, this means painstakingly developing those foundational qualities first. Qualities like patience, deep self-awareness, consistent, deliberate practice, and crucially, that genuine willingness to face and work through our own imperfections and flaws, not around them.
Build the character first.
Build the character first. Build that sturdy character, that robust inner landscape, that quiet resilience. Before you try to manifest your highest aspirations, chase the grandest outward achievements, or make that massive impact on the world you might dream of. It's the quiet, often invisible work of becoming a stronger, more resilient, and more aligned human being first. That's the foundation that allows your powerful engine, your talent, your ambition to truly thrive without burning out or breaking down the whole machine.
And that ties directly back into Alexander Herzen's point, right? Channeled through Tolstoy's calendar, reminding us that the work of, quote, saving humanity, of making any lasting positive change in the world, it truly begins with saving ourselves. And just to be crystal clear again, this is not about narcissistic self-absorption. It's not about becoming so self-focused that you ignore the needs of the world or becoming so insulated that you forget our deep interconnectedness.
It's actually the opposite, isn't it?
It feels like the opposite. It's the patient, often invisible, and arduous work of becoming fully human, fully capable, fully aligned within yourself first. It's about cultivating the inner resources, the wisdom, the resilience required to not only navigate your own belly of the beast effectively, but also ultimately to genuinely serve others from a place of real strength, clarity, and integrity. You just can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Yeah.
And you can't genuinely guide others if you're constantly lost and flailing yourself.
Well said.
So here's where it gets, I think, truly interesting. A final provocative thought for you, the listener, to carry forward from this deep dive. This collection of wisdom ultimately suggests that the hero's journey, it isn't some grand escape from ordinary life. It's not some dramatic flight to a distant land of glory and perfection.
What is it then?
Instead, it seems to be a deeper, more profound engagement with ordinary life itself, right here, right now. It's about finding the extraordinary within the mundane struggle of daily existence, within the quiet moments of practicing patience, within the humility required to acknowledge your own stumbles and mistakes.
The magic in the mundane.
Exactly. So consider this as you go about your week. The greatest adventure you will ever embark on might not be the conquest of external territories or winning grand awards or accumulating vast wealth. It might just be the patient, lifelong cultivation of your own inner landscape. In developing this sleek vessel of character with its foundation of patience, self-awareness, and persistent effort, you are preparing yourself not only for your own profound transformation, but also quietly and powerfully for the service of others who are inevitably fighting their own battles, wrestling with their own doubts, and navigating the confusion of their own belly of their own beasts.
That feels like a legacy that truly endures.
Doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into self-mastery and the profound wisdom that shapes our inner heroic journey.
Yeah, and really applying these principles patience, self-reliance, that radical self-honesty, accepting imperfection can profoundly shift your entire approach to challenges, to personal growth, and just to how you interact with the world around you. It really is about building from the inside out, and it's definitely a journey worth taking, however messy it gets.
Absolutely. So as you go about your day, maybe we encourage you to reflect. Which aspect of building your sleek vessel might you focus on next? Where could you apply just a little more patience, a little more self-reliance, or maybe just a little more honest self-awareness about your own perfectly normal stumbling and bumbling? Until next time, keep diving deep.